Hey folks, it's Charles Max Wood. I'm just going to jump in here real quick before we start this episode. When I recorded the episode with Sam, he gave out a link to his Career Factors assessment, which is free, but he couldn't get that link to come together. So I'm going to give you a different link. It is dev.careerfactorscoaching.com. So I'm just going to let this roll into the episode, and then I will remind you at the end of the episode again of that URL. Hey folks, welcome back. I'm putting together a real brief bonus episode, mainly because I've been talking to a lot of people who feel like they're stuck in their careers, and I hear all kinds of reasons why. And I have a friend who actually talks to people about this, and why they're not happy where they're at, or what they're missing, what career factors I'll say go into what really makes them enjoy their job or not enjoy their job, or feel stuck or feel like they're moving, and things like that. And as I've talked to people about momentum, I've found that a lot of this kind of reflects with what Sam's put together with his career factors. And so I thought, hey, let's get Sam on. Let's talk to him. Let's see, okay, what do you offer? How do you think about this stuff? I guess before we do that, I should let you introduce yourself, right, Sam? So you want to just tell people who you are, kind of what your background is, and kind of give us the 10,000-foot view on what Career Factors is, then we can dive into how people can think about their careers.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate it. I love this. I remember my background is as a school counselor, and then left public education about 2 years ago because I wasn't helping enough people. And so I wanted to make a bigger impact. And a lot of that came around. I remember, I think 2007 or 2008, I was in my master's program, took a course in career development, and it was one of my 3 or 4 light bulb moments in my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a whole thing. And you'd think as an educator and having gone through the system, of course I would, my journey would have been marked by significant career development milestones, but no one talks about them. And I realized as a school counselor, I was kind of just perpetuating the problem, which was, hey, just go to college and figure it out. Instead of owning, I know that's not the advice you got, Chuck. I'm sure it's totally different.
No, but that was pretty much it.
So I thought, man, we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, obviously, to borrow from the familiar phrase, and think we're going to get a different result. And so even in my 40s, I'm like, man, I'm not happy with my job. Why? I just really started digging in and trying to figure out like what I in effect thought I had hired my job to do for me. But realized I was really asking something different for it, but I hadn't really codified it. And so started studying cranky people, which was a lot of fun, figuring out.
I love it.
Well, there were plenty of them. Figuring out why there were 3 or 4 people who had the same exact job. 3 of them were great with it. The other person was off her rocker, not a good fit, even though the job description was the same. I was realizing it's not the job description. It's something internal. And so that just kind of set me on this journey of what I call the career factors. And my goal is to help people stop hating their jobs. So there we go.
All right. So how do you stop hating your job? I mean, just to give a little bit of context here, and I think you know this because, we've been in a mastermind group together and talked through some of it, but I lost a contract a couple weeks ago. And I like the people I was working with. I'm going to give all these caveats and then basically say, but I was miserable, and I was so relieved when it was over, right? And it really didn't have anything to do with the work I was doing or the people I was working with. There were just these other things that just, it was like, oh, wow, the level of stress and noise and stuff from it just came off of it. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see what you have to share as far as, okay, so let's say I feel stuck, or let's say that I'm just not happy and I can't pin it down. Like, how do you attack that?
Well, one of those is really changing the way we think about our jobs at all. And so I think we have inherited a lot from our parents. And one of the things that we inherited is how to think about work in general. And so like you and I are both have people of faith. And so you see people who think like anything from your career is a calling to your career is a curse, like in all points in between. But we inherit all these things from others. in our own journey, and so we kind of bring that into this as well. But the big thing that I realized was there's a in behavioral economics there's a theory called the jobs to be done theory, and in effect it says everything that we purchase we hire to do a job for us. Like, so I've hired this pen to do a job for me, right? And if it doesn't do a good job, I'm pitching it. In the same way, in kind of a little bit of in a meta sort of way, but we actually are hiring our jobs to do a job for us. But okay, so that's nice, but we don't know what it is. So or we've not been honest or aware enough to know what we're doing it to do. So one thing that's really easy to think about is like, so somebody who like my dad was a pastor, so like he knew so many of his fellow pastor friends who were pastors just because their dads were pastors. So they in effect hired their job to make their dad happy. Like that was it. Like there was so much. It was so much more nuanced and rich and complicated. What they really wanted from their job, even though on the surface, I'll say for me as a teacher, I wanted a decent pay. I knew it wasn't going to be a ton, but I really wanted the lifestyle where I could raise my family. Right. So I got 5 kids. I got a lot of family to raise. You and I know this. So. So that's where I knew, but then I started my job and all of a sudden I wasn't happy, even though I had some money and the lifestyle. So what else was missing? So it becomes this journey of self-discovery. And that's what I do. I'll walk through this process with each person in our coaching sessions is let's figure out what you actually want from your job so that then we can go ask for it. Because if I need something in a relationship or I go to Home Depot and I need to buy something for this, if I don't tell them what I'm looking for and I'm mad at them, it's kind of my fault, right? Yeah. Like I haven't told them what I want. So we have like 2 or 3 kind of major rocks to move in our lives of figuring out maybe I want more than just money. Although money's nice. I mean, I'm a big fan. Like my book is dedicated. It says to anyone who wants more from a career than just a paycheck. Although those are nice too. So I'm great with being paid. But then we got to say, okay, if I want something more, what the heck is it? And then once I've defined that, then how do I go and find that in my current job so I don't have to leave? I can be happier at my job without leaving, or I decide I do want to leave. Let's not make the same mistake I made last time. Now I'm equipped. So it's really a skill set that I'm teaching by thinking differently about work.
That makes sense. So I mean, I go into jobs and it's like I liked this about that job and I liked that about that job and I hated this about this other job. And so, I'll ask questions and try and screen them out for what I think I like or don't like. But at the end of the day, I mean, sometimes things change. I mean, this contract that I talked about a minute ago, right? It was terrific, and then they got acquired, and and so some of the things,
they changed the rules on you,
and then in other circumstances, I was at the job for a few months and figured out that there were some aspects of the job that I don't know that I ever could have asked the right question to uncover, but it just wasn't a good fit, and I've also left other jobs where I wasn't happy, and I don't know if I could have pinned down exactly what it was.
Right. That's why we look at, like, most people will think of their jobs with 2 factors. It's skills. Can I do the thing, or this is the thing I want to do with my job? And then the other one is lifestyle, which is this intersection of time and money. I think if I have those things, and I even kind of wrestled a little bit with like some guilt around this when I started thinking more about it, because I thought 2 generations ago, you worked to stay alive. Like it would am I just being kind of like a whiny brat? Like
I felt that, right?
Right? Like, am I just being ungrateful? I don't think, I'm not trying to be. Like, I'm a fairly grateful person usually, actually. But there was something just kept rubbing, like I couldn't let it go. And I'm like, I got to press into this because it's still there. So I ended up working on and discovering 4 other pretty significant factors to career satisfaction. And that allowed me to see, okay, it can't just be those 2. Because when I did the research, I learned that actually those two in particular, skills
Lifestyle.
and lifestyle, which is kind of like compensation, they only serve to limit dissatisfaction.
I'll buy that.
They they can't ever actually make you happy. They can make you feel, validated, like in terms of like, okay, I'm getting paid what I deserve. I'm not getting ripped off. But the one of the biggest things that needs to happen in a transformation, which a lot of people are initially pretty hesitant about, is that they've got to recognize that they can own their career satisfaction, that they can actually be responsible for it or be in charge of it. And I'm reminded, I don't know if you're a big Office fan, but one of my favorite lines from there is Dwight brags that he can both raise and lower his cholesterol. And Jim says, well, why would you want to raise your cholesterol? He said, so I can lower it again. But I think we have that, like, but I believe in my heart, this is what I preach and teach to my clients and to when I do keynotes and trainings for corporations is, it's career satisfaction is at least in part an inside job. And while initially I'm like, well, I would rather not take responsibility for it because this guy is a lunatic. And I like,
no, that's fair.
Yeah, right. I mean, Office Space exists for a reason. It's a phenomenal movie. I was like, this is a documentary. This isn't satire. But I would prefer to just wait around until Lumbergh changes, but he is not going to. So I want to wrest at least a little bit of control from him to say, I can affect at least a little bit of this. And that is a kind of a journey of empowerment, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah. I haven't seen Office Space, but I will tell you that watching The Office, like I tried to get my wife to watch it and we watched like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yes.
And she's like, these people are all weird. Why is this funny? And I'm like, because I've worked with every single one of these people. So
they're all caricatures.
So yeah, yes. But getting back to this idea. Okay, so yeah, how do I take control of my job satisfaction? Right? What am I not seeing that I need to understand as far as what's going to make me happy at work? Yeah,
and it starts with what am I not seeing internally? Like what matters to you that you haven't named? And if you start there, then you're that's a great place to start. What have I not named internally that's important to me? And then I can start to say, okay, now this is a lens I can kind of take to the world and see, okay, yep, that's there. Maybe not. And to your point earlier, I can't control whether a job that I walk into, that company gets acquired, or, the person who interviews me is a lunatic. But I can at least say I'm going in with eyes wide open because one of the side benefits of this, it makes you a great interview. Because if you think to it like on a resume or your profile on LinkedIn, especially when you're looking for work, what's your objective? I'd like to get paid. Like I'd like to keep living indoors. I mean,
to your point, if you're not getting paid enough, the stress levels go up. But yeah, if I'm making, another $50,000 a year, above and beyond what I need, I mean, I'm a little more comfortable, but yeah, I'm not really like, it doesn't make me that much happier. So yeah. Right.
Yeah. Especially around where work is. And oftentimes you'll see that the increase in pay comes with an increase in responsibility. It creeps into that offsetting factor of lifestyle. And so if I can learn how to like continue with the interview thing for a second, like I can say, hey, my top 3 are impact, growth, and skills. Like those are the 3 that make me tick. What are you guys currently doing to help your employees grow? Sit back, listen to what they have to say, read through the response to find out if that's, if, oh my gosh, that's something we overlook all the time. So I'm going to make something up, or, oh, okay, like this is pretty much part of your culture. That sounds like something that I want to follow up on. So you ask better questions in an interview, I think, when you know your career.
No, that makes total sense. And it's interesting too, because like I've talked to some people that are fairly new in their career. And so, you mentioned growth is possibly one of them. Right. And
Yeah.
and so they're very eager about it. But I talk to people later in their career, and it's not as much, right? They want to continue to learn technology and they want to stay current on what's out there, but they're much more interested in impact or in some of these other areas, right? It's like, can I help other developers come up in the field? Can I, am I part of a company that's doing good in the world? Am I, and so, yeah, it's, I can kind of see where you're heading with some of these. I don't know exactly what the career factors are, but yeah, those are the things that, people tend to get to once they're like, I'm making enough money that I'm not stressed out over paying the bills and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And that's really where you see, and I actually recommend you take it once a year, because like how your life changed when you had a kid, all of a sudden priorities are, oh my word, like what did I even do with my spare time? Before, like now that I don't have any, I'm seeing it as, very, so these different, you have different seasons of life and you have different seasons of your career. And so, to your point, to know even what you're looking for is a really big deal. And I've named almost all of them. So there's just 6. I want to keep this very, very simple. I've taken inventories before and diagnostics, and I'm very impressed by the heft of the results. That's great. This isn't really workable. Like, I'm not a psychometrician. What do I do? Like, what do I do next? These are pretty straightforward. So there's just 6. It's skills, impact, relationship, environment, growth, and lifestyle. And so I even recently went through, there were 7. I figured out how to include it in the other because I wanted to be very, very focused. But for each, one thing I found very interesting when I was working as a school counselor, for each of these applied to our lives will appear very different. And so I had a friend named Trish. She and I we're both counselors, and I didn't have the assessment built yet, but I would bet hers is a number 1 is impact, as is mine. However, hers is a deep dive, like get in the mud with people. She wants to rescue 5 or 6 kids a year. My impact is scalable systemic change. Because we both had impact, I thought we were going to get along better, but we butted heads all the time because our way to approach something and our vision of what it looked like was so different. And so that's where the coaching part also is very important, because you take an assessment, great. Hey, mine's, impact, environment, and lifestyle. Cool. But I now carry that. You're just carrying my terms with you. That's wearing somebody else's clothes. Like, it just doesn't fit. You've got to take the time to really dig in. Well, what does that look like to me? How do I see that in my current role? How can I apply it to get even greater effect? And so that's where it gets very, very personalized off of a pretty simple, 5-minute diagnostic. It gets personal in the walking it out. And that's where I think a lot of our processes fall short, is it's not personalized and it's not then applied. And so it's like, okay, this is more head knowledge. I don't need more head knowledge. Paradigms help you see different. I need to see differently.
So, I guess, how do you begin to evaluate which ones? Because, some of those, they resonate with me more than others. But, how do I know? Like, what kinds of questions do I need to be asking myself to say, okay, really, am I really an impact guy, or am I more skills or growth or whatever?
Yeah, well, one of them is the sniff test, because I think there is just some of that, like knowing yourself, which is incredibly important. But I also, I created the career factors called the CF3. It's just a diagnostic, which you can take for free. So if you just go to careerfactorscoaching.com/devs, anybody's listening to this, take it for free. And you go through and answer the questions in about 5 minutes, get your results of your top 3, and then figure out, okay, like, how do I want to prioritize these? Can I start to see, is one of them a surprise to me? Or maybe this is, oh my gosh, that makes sense. Or what I love too is this idea of remembering your first love, like remembering to go back to you know what? Like, oh my gosh, I forgot. Like this is for me for relationships. When I took the survey, when I built it, and I'm just testing it on myself, right? And the relationships was higher than I thought. I thought back to a job I had as a school counselor, and I joked with my colleagues often. I would have left 3 years ago, but I really like hanging out with you guys. Yeah, like I felt like we were doing something together, like almost like there were two others of them in particular, Nicole and Patrick, and I was like, I feel like we can actually, because Impact's my number one. I feel like you guys, the three of us together, can actually make a change here in an industry that does not quick to change. And so that I realized that the relationships actually were feeding my impact. None of these is isolated.
No,
right?
totally.
They can all come together, but that's the quickest way to get some feedback on is just take the diagnostic and sit with it. Feel out, like, is there something there that maybe I've neglected, or this is kind of out of left field? Like maybe I should think a little bit about maybe why for me, maybe my working environment is more important to me than I'd like to think.
Well, it's interesting too, just from the standpoint of, I'd love to see what mine are. I'm kind of curious once I get those three factors, right? You mentioned, for example, on impact, right? Your friend Trish and you had very different ideas of what impact even meant, right? I mean, it was impact at a high level, but the specifics were very different. So how do I go from, okay, I've got these three factors. Now, what do those mean for me, right? How do I start to figure that out?
Yeah. You have a couple different options, and it kind of depends which direction you're better at looking. And so one of them I have, and actually, so in the book, this book is kind of like a guide through. So there's actually activities at the end of each chapter. So if you want to pick this up, that's an easy way to do that. And so I kind of give you a blank slate at the end of one of the chapters. And I say, look, sunshine and rainbows, if you could have growth, let's pretend growth is your number one, what would it look like? Like start to go through it, just write it out. And so it's a slowing down process because we aren't good at doing that. So I'm being intentional about it. And I would actually just had a call with a coaching client just before this one, and that was his homework. And so I was like, okay, now read it out loud. And as he's reading it out loud, he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even consciously connect those dots. And so if you're good at looking ahead, that's one way to do it. If you're more, if it's easier for you, or you're bent more is toward looking back, we have an activity that we do called the resume rewind, where you actually go through with that lens now and say, let's say again, we'll stick with growth and skills for these two. Where were growth and skills? If I list out my resume, where did I see it? And maybe go back through, now that I have this lens, maybe I left this job because this new job that I have now pays me more. But I look back and I'm like, oh man, I think that was it. So my next job, I'm looking for something similar to that. Or I have a friend who she left a job for the money and now is considering, because her lifestyle needs have changed, like her family work-life balance. She's considering going back to the company she was at before. It's because she had it there, but she didn't realize that that's what she wanted. So you can practice this lens by being able to look back with this new way of looking at it and saying, okay, outside in, can I rate these? We actually have a whole worksheet and everything to do that, but can I rate these and say, I see now where this could have been the spot. What was my thought process? And I think, as I said before, borrowed clothes, a lot of times, I have a buddy who works in cybersecurity, and he said, it's very much the trend in that industry to hop as quickly as possible to the next thing that pays more. But then after a while, you ascend, and the money, the increases are reduced in percentage. You start topping out in the industry, and then you better hope that you're happy wherever your last post is, because you might be there for a while. And he noticed when a couple of people were leaving, and he's like, I don't really want to leave, but I feel like I should. And then we start talking about this whole thing is like, wait a second, I could be walking into a situation like my situation right now with my family is perfect. Right. I could take the money, which my wife doesn't care about, but be away more, like be on the road. And then all of a sudden I'm scratching an itch that nobody in my family has, but because my buddy's doing it, I think I'm supposed to. And you can get buried under a pile of should in a hurry if you aren't smart about knowing what's important to you as compared to what's important to those around you.
No, that makes complete sense to me. And what he's described has been my experience as well, right? And I've talked to a number of other people where, they get into a job, they work there for maybe a year, and then they figure out that, hey, I can go get paid, half again or a third again my salary by going somewhere else. And, I could go on and on about short-sighted companies that allow their employees to walk out the door this way. But ultimately, and I can't say that I blame them on the money side.
No, there's nothing wrong with it at all.
But yeah, after a while, you start getting up to that six figures, low, mid six figures. And the next job is an incremental 5% maybe. And so, then you're starting to look at it and go, is it worth the extra 5% if I'm not happy there? And so that's totally something that we see on our end too, not just in cybersecurity, but I think in a lot of the IT related industry.
Yes.
So you also mentioned though that, let's say I'm not happy at my job, right? You mentioned that I may not have to leave my job in order to start being happy there, right? And some of these, it kind of makes sense, right? I can find a way to make an impact, or I can find a way to, change my environment to make it, more conducive to what I want, if those are my factors. But I think the ones that I hear about the most typically come down to skills and growth, where people are, the company really isn't doing anything for them there. And, so there's no investment in, going and learning new skills or picking up the latest in whatever, or, they don't really have a way of advancing within the company. And so they feel like they're stuck, and, they can go do it on their own, but they could go do it on their own at another company that will actually give them a budget to do it and things like that. So are those examples of when you should leave, or are there ways to do it where you're at?
There are ways. It does require a lot more creativity. So my first goal is to help individuals stay at their current job if they want to, because it is such a pain in the rear to change jobs, right? But I also recognize, like we have a buddy, Paul, actually, and I interviewed him one time about career, and I think it was like his fourth job before he realized it was him.
Right.
He was like, I kept job hopping, and we're like, dang it, it's me. So to that end, what we do in our coaching is figure out, okay, can we make you happy in your current job? If so, awesome. Here's how you do it. We decide though about a half to 3/4 of the way through the process. Look, do you want to jump? If so, how do you position yourself to find and in effect speak the language of the people who appreciate what you appreciate, right? What's funny too, because in a situation where growth isn't encouraged as a company, that's only a problem if that matters to you. So again, for everyone else around you, they're like, what's the big deal? Like, why do you care? The growth is not their number one. And so you'll feel weird in a spot. I did for a long time. Yeah. Like I try to affect change, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in public education. Like what? Why did I think this would be something that would happen? And so the conflict comes when there isn't an alignment of values. And so if you want to move, and if you want to move to a company that does more than lip service to the things that are important to you, you really need to dig in and define, like what I've had before, conversations around like, hey, my lifestyle for this, I want to be able to, not like have a good work-life balance. And I was like, that's cute. You need to really be specific about what that looks like, because if you don't define it, how does your company know when they bump up against it? Because you're like, oh, well, I guess, everybody, again, like everyone else is doing this, right? Well, that's fine. But if it matters to you, and that's the part that is going to either light you up when it's there or tear you down when it's not, you need to know how to find your next job using the language that connects
Right.
you with the people who get it on their side too.
So what point, right? Because you said that your priority is to keep people in the job they're at. So what
Yep.
point do I, try things out? And at what point do I decide, you know what, there's nothing I can do here to make this happen? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it really isn't in your control.
It is totally, and there are usually factors the other factors that would influence whether you stay or whether you go. So it's maybe, okay, this is my number one, this is one I'm really fired up about, but at the same time, let's say lifestyle is my number two, and it's providing enough. Like John Maxwell says, like your work is your passion or finance is your passion. And so you maybe say, you know what, like I wish I was making more of an impact at my current job, but it allows me the finances to do a mission trip for 2 weeks a year. And that's enough juice to fill me up, So there's a balance there, because you do like, especially if you're married and you have kids, like you need to kind of, hey, guess what? We're moving to Toledo. Okay. Like, I'm glad your cup's being filled, but like, we got to, there is a balance to it. But I think at the same time, like the best time to look for a job is when you have a job. I never see a problem with, let's go ahead and prep for the go. One of the clients I worked with recently, he is anticipating a move for family reasons and hasn't broached the possibility of working remote with his current company yet.
Oh, wow.
Because he wants to have an offer in his pocket.
Oh, okay.
Says, hey, help. So we are locked set on getting him a new job. But he may end up saying, now that I have this, now I'm going to go back and propose this as a 1 year stopgap. Because his preference, he loves the job where he is, but his family, his wife needs to move, and so the whole thing. So it's never in a vacuum. But I think if you're prepared to leave, then it's because you have really owned those career factors and that what makes you tick. And so then, hey, great. If I can use this as leverage to make that happen here, awesome.
Yep.
That it's easier too. So you can kind of get to it either way.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting too, because it sounds like their factors, one of them just took precedence for whatever, some kind of life change, for them or family member. But yeah, it's also interesting, how you're talking about. Now, I've never had the experience where, I got an offer, came back, and they countered with anything that was even remotely reasonable, right? And
they just give you another reason to leave,
right? It's like, and both times they begged me to let them counter, right? They're like, we want to keep you, let us counter. I was like, all right, and and then I'm just like, you're joking, right? But at the same time, I've talked to bunches of other people, and I've never seen it work out either. But I guess that's neither here nor there. I guess what it really boils down to is, then is that filling, is it going to give you enough with the other things you've got going on to tick those boxes, right?
Yeah.
And the money thing does come in those cases.
It absolutely does. And I think too, I mean, I'm a big picture thinker on like my life. Like I'm every day is an example for my kids on my legacy. Like that's, what your kids see you do is permission for them to do the same thing. And so I think about like a buddy of mine who loves his family, like just so much involved with them, wants to coach sports, that whole thing. But his job has him traveling 40 weeks a year.
Man. Yeah.
But he grew up, do you ever read Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker?
Good book.
So the first 3 chapters in there, the affirmation parts are good. But the first 3 chapters about the financial blueprint you have and you inherited from your parents, usually, is so powerful, because that's what he got. His parents were dirt poor. He's like, well, I'm not going to be that. Okay. Everything, there was one factor, was if it paid more, it was going to be. And so his kids were grown by the time he actually was able to take a job. And so now he's coaching other people's kids, even though his heart was to coach his own. Like you've got to realize there's always a larger context, and it's so important to be able to see how this is going to affect within this larger. That's why I talk the book that came before, the Career Factors, talked about the 7 core
Right.
areas of life, and career is one of them, which means it's
Right.
14% of it. even though it dominates
Right.
our week and
Yeah.
our waking hours, so you've got to have some sort of larger context
Right.
for that.
So I guess at the end of the day, I mean, we've already been talking for 35 minutes, and I kind of wanted to keep this about 45. And I think we've given people a lot to think about. You mentioned Career Factors Coaching.
Hope so.
.com/dev, as a way where people can go and take the assessment. But and I know you do coaching, and so I guess kind of putting these things together with the book and the coaching and everything else. I would imagine some people are going to go take the assessment, they're going to go do some deep work, and they're going to figure out where they want to end up. And other people are going to go take the assessment, they're going to get some feedback, and then they're going to need a little help, I guess, getting a little bit further down the road, right?
Yeah.
Where it's, okay, I've got these ideas about what I'm about. I kind of know what I want to do, but I don't really know what to do about it. So at that point, where do they go, right? Do you have, I don't know if it's a coaching program or the next step is something else, right?
Yeah. We book a call, talk through it a little bit, because I want to know, at the outset, what your goals are. And that's largely for you, because I think when you know what your goals are, I mean, that's a huge win. And then we lay out kind of the program and the schedule. And so it's a deep dive, and there's a lot of work. It's a very personalized. Right. And so at this time, I don't have any group coaching. It's very much one-on-one, because I think our career and how it shows up in our lives is very personalized and individualized. And one thing that has become an ancillary benefit that I didn't really expect is we got feedback from one person in particular who is an engineer and who works in he works in medical device. And he said, I didn't expect this. I wasn't looking for this, but it's really nice to talk to somebody honestly about my career,
right,
who isn't related to me, just because my culture doesn't promote it, and it's not something they're looking for. But to have somebody who's not necessarily in my industry, who has a larger vision of kind of where I could go, help me see. That's what a good coach does, is just points out stuff that maybe is right in front of you the whole time.
I've experienced that,
but you can't see it. Right? Oh my gosh, absolutely. That's why I really do well in coaching situations as a participant, because I need eyeballs on my life. Like I need somebody with a different perspective. But yeah, there's a after you take your assessment, there's a free call. We talk for 15 or 20 minutes and just learn more about, hey, what does that look like in your life, and do you want somebody to walk through that with you? And at the end of the day, really starting to identify, how would it benefit me to do something different than what I'm currently doing with my career? Because most people can pretty accurately predict the next 10 to 15 years of their career in terms of their career experience, because they're using the same playbook they did for the last 10 or 15 years. And so if they want to do something different and they want to rediscover fulfilling work, then I'm a pretty big fan of what we've been able to do so far.
Well, and the reason I bring it up, to be perfectly honest, is that when I need to figure something like this out, I almost always go find a coach, or at least somebody that I can talk through it with, right? If I can't, afford a coach, or I can't find somebody that I think can get me there, right? I'll go find a friend or a neighbor or somebody who has some context that can walk me through it, because at the end of the day, if I have to figure it out, it's going to take me, especially on the career stuff. I mean, what you're talking about, I had to learn the hard way over like 3, 4, 5 years, right? And if I can talk to a coach on a regular basis for a few months, right?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, right?
4 weeks, you will have this like baked in.
Yeah, I guess I assumed it was a few months, but 4 weeks is amazing, right? Because then I have the clarity. Then I know where I'm headed. I know what to do, instead of, oh, that didn't work. Ow, that hurt, right? And so that's where, but even if you just get the clarity from the assessment, right, you're that much further ahead.
Sure.
But I'm going to encourage people, take the assessment, and if Sam's offering free calls, get on the call and figure it out, right?
Yeah, Yeah, my goal is to offer as much value as I can in the time that we have, and if we have 15 minutes, great. If we have a month or more, great. I mean, it's my number one career factor is impact. So that's what I'm shooting for every time we interact.
Yep, sounds good. Well, I'm just going to remind people again, they can go take that assessment at careerfactorscoaching.com/dev. And I'd be curious to know what your fulfillment career factors are. So, feel free to put them in a comment, or you can send me a message, send me an email and let me know. Because I'd love to know where people are at and what out there is lighting you up in your career.
Yeah, and it's so much fun to see when you find a bunch of people who are in the have the same job description, but their career factors are totally different, and you realize that's the fun part. Is we can be in the same job for totally different reasons and be fine. Like we can still have our needs met, and it brings a richness to a company culture. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah, I can imagine if I'm an employer or a manager, right, and I have several people working for me, and I start to figure out what these career factors are, that I could start to really push the buttons, right, on some of these, right? Not to manipulate people, but more just to make sure that they're.
It sounded like you were manipulating them. I'm glad you clarified
but more
that.
just so that they get the payoff, right? Because if I've got people that I feel like are critical members of my team, people who, I'm trying to help grow in their career, and it's like, oh, it's growth. Okay, well, let's growth the heck out of this, right? Oh, Bingo. It's impact. Yep. Okay, well, here are some ways you can make impact here, right? We're going to support you in making impact in the community through open source or, running meetups or whatever, right? And so it's not that much of a stretch. And to be honest, it'll pay off for your company dividends, because people want to work where people are happy working. And so,
Yep. And I actually do this in corporate consulting. We actually go in and we coach the managers on how to do this. And what's really awesome about it is it changes this power dynamic from the only time I talk to my boss is when he tells me what to do, and then when I didn't do it right. And instead, it becomes now he's actually like somebody is looking out for me. Like they are helping me with this, and it's just it changes it because it softens it where it's kind of fun to have somebody else who has my career factors in mind, being able to say, hey, this new opportunity came up. I thought of you. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's great. Somebody who's pulling for me in that way. And so changing that dynamic of the manager, we actually do coaching for companies as well. And it's so much fun to just, because the managers don't want to be like that either. Like they don't want to be jerks. Like it's just,
but
what else are you going to talk about? Your feelings? Like, no, it's, you got to talk about the work. So it frees them up too.
No, that makes total sense, I guess. And we do have managers that listen to these shows too. So, if you're a manager, have your people go take it, right?
Cool.
And
or reach out to me, and I can actually tailor it with the assessment code where you can specifically focus on your people. I give you that code, and then you can just say, hey, here you got 25 people.
Oh,
here's the distribution of. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, because I can imagine too, right? Then I have somebody working for me, and I say, hey, this is where the code you wrote impacted our customers, right? Or we have this opportunity coming up, and it seems like a great way to get better skills or to...
Yeah, or I've got a professional development day coming up. What in the world am I going to talk about? Oh, 40% of my people have environment as something. Let's spend time, at least attend to that in the PD session.
Yeah, and find out what their work environment...
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. All right.
So, ton of fun. I appreciate it, Chuck. I love jamming on this, but I know
we are. I'm just going to remind people again. I just want to put the link out there so people can go take advantage of it. Careerfactorscoaching.com/dev, and like Sam said, if you're a manager, reach out to him. How do people reach out to you if they want to create one of those assessment codes?
Yeah, just sam@thecareerfactors.com.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks, Sam. I hope this helps some folks. I'm sure it'll help some folks, but. And like I said before, just send me your career factors too, because I want to see what people are getting.
Yeah, I'll post mine in this chat in the comments here. You can do yours the same. I'll send that link to you right now.
All right, sounds good. Well, until next time, folks.
See you, Chuck.
Max out. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Real quick, once again, that URL is going to be dev.careerfactorscoaching.com, not the URL that he gave out in the episode. I hope you enjoy it. Check it out. We'll put it in the show notes, and have a great day.